nerdy Gary Gensler caught whispering departing sweet nothings to his political sycophants? Are we about to see the resignation of the crypto industry's biggest pain in the Bitcoin crypto morning tea? Hey. Good morning, everybody. My name's pianomattyb. That is Scaramucci's. This is your morning TA. A brief glimpse through the crypto markets where the sun's shining, where the wind's blowing. Oh, the humble opinion of this piano Zamboni. Bring in the data. The FOMO index has dipped down to 80 from yesterday's 88. Bitcoin dominance 59.8%. 24-hour volumes 220 billion. The overall market cap 2.95 give or take 100 million. Well, we finally received what some legacy analysts refer to as a pullback. Yes, the inevitable cool-off, where the bulls take a little break. But we talked about this, so it should have come as no surprise to anyone in this boutique community when Bitcoin price action, well, she had a little dump. I've developed a little case of bearish divergence, the reversal kind. As price action has made higher highs, while the MACD and the RSI have both made lower highs, and under normal market conditions, this would increase the probability of a reversal and some downward pressure. So if, I say if we see that play out, I wouldn't be surprised to see a retest for 38.2% fib down at 86.6. Lord love a doc. She didn't do just that. After peaking out Wednesday at 93.3, price action began to feel the cool and we fell into the loving arms of the 20 moving average who held back our hair as we cried in the toilet bowl, but couldn't keep us from further bearish pressure, finding a bottom and a bounce at 86.6, and has fought our way back up to a time of production 89.1, just poking our nose above all three moving averages and carving out the right shoulder of this baby hidden shoulders pattern. And the price probability of this pattern is, and sing it with me now, oh, you take the pole, you slide it all, the breakout point, and then we're all at 81.1-ish. But this is the 4-hour chart, and she's a what? That's right. Leave it in the comments section, please. Now over on the ding dong, you can see we carved out our second red candle out of a possible 10, which is hella bullish, to say the least. But pianomattyb, aren't we carving out a cute little bull flag? And yes, we are. And thanks for asking. And this cute little bull flag has a price probability of way up at 105-ish. Sweet. Quick look at the Wookiee. Sees we are currently carving out a 10% upside on this week's candle. Ah, yes, the angelic voices of the children's choir of enchanted wicks, letting us know that a juicy wick has been sacrificed to the gods of wickedness. Up at 93.3, which is also my heartbreakingly bullish outlook for Sunday's close. I'm hoping for a replay of last weekend's bullish party ending in a Sunday pump to close this week's candle at or above 93.3, fulfilling those pesky brats' prophecy, which isn't that heartbreakingly bullish at all because it's only a hop, skip, and a 4% bump from here. It's easy to do. And would you look at that, my friends? Sun's up. It's another beautiful day here on planet Earth today. None of us are guaranteed. We're not guaranteed these days. Yeah, we're lucky enough to have anyway, so get out there, knock 'em dead, and remember, we're playing the same game as our psychopathic elected lead. That's right, it's the long game. So zoom out and have a fantastic day. And we'll be going live right away, so grab yourself a coffee. Join me for a quick one, and by all means, it's Friday, so sing me out, won't you? I'll run the banks of boom to spang. Whoa!
Misco 5 for Friday, he strikes again. The Oprah Winfrey of this channel, thank you for the memberships, Misco. 5 for Friday, keeping the lights on in this old basement studio he is. Thank you very much, Misco. You know, I'm hella bullish, not only on Bitcoin, but I feel like maybe we're entering into like a golden age of the next level of society and civilization. I don't know. I just can't help but think that things are just turning into like good news all of a sudden. It's like we lived in this nightmare for 4 years of it's like I couldn't even believe what was going on half the time, and now it seems like just like the truth, you know, if you give everything time, the truth will come to light. And I feel like that's what we're experiencing now. What do you think about the new upside?
Dude, I am okay. So obviously we have the great news of Gary Gensler, but yesterday was also.
I'm wearing my shirt in
yeah,
dirty Gary
gone,
Gensler shirt.
He's gone, and you know, usually people get let go on a Friday, so maybe today is the day we see that official announcement come out. He's kind of talking in past tense, but also the agencies that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is about to have oversight over. I mean, we're talking the FDA, we're talking the CDC, the CMS, the ACL, the ACF. I mean, 13 total agencies, National Health Institute, all of these agencies that I felt like were these indestructible power structures that had control over the literal medical aspect of me and my family's life now are being overseen by one of the people on this planet that I would trust to actually set the boat in a straight and narrow path, and that is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he is now the leader of these organizations overseeing this entire gamut. It's so incredible. If someone would have told me 3 years ago that this would have been the reality, I'd be like, stop it. You're giving me too much good news. You're just trying to get me to calm down. Stop. And here we are. It's been announced. We had an election that went off without a hitch because there was so much oversight over this election that it was too big to rig. It was too important, too big to rig. And here we are. It's an incredible time frame to be alive, man. Chart wise, that bull flag that you're talking about,
105.
I really Dude, I feel like we're going to be able to accomplish that by Thanksgiving. I feel like we're going to be able to accomplish the bull flag you're talking about by Thanksgiving, Matty B. It's playing out to a T in comparison to previous market cycle entire extension realms, which I've been watching on the Fibonacci. And last cycle, it only took us 18 days to zip through this entire fib level that we're sitting at right now. If you're going from top to bottom of the entire cycle, we are only a few days into this, and we're already 2/3 of the way through this entire section. Everyone's saying, oh, no, there's got to be some big pullback to 60 before we can really take off. That's just cope for people that are hoping that it will come back and that they will have a chance. And honestly, Bitcoin on a weekly chart looks like all gas and no brakes until we hit about $110,000, $120,000. Then we prove 100K as our support for the next fib level on up there. It's just an incredible time to be alive. And shout out to everyone for supporting Matty B and being in crypto ahead of this explosion, man. This is where all the people are hitting us up. They're trying to ask, hey, what should I buy? What should I get into? Really, in this time frame, I feel like we are still set for massive upside. Technically speaking, if I'm looking at the entire cycle and the ability for the top end of the Fibonacci extension of this cycle compared to the last before that, I tangibly feel like we're going to accomplish 200 to 240,000 bucks this cycle.
Well, you know what the silver lining and the good news about everything is and I told this story August 5th when we had that big Japan trade crash. And I remember I was out at Victoria Beach in the cabin thinking, oh my God, the sky's falling. This is going to be the worst thing ever. And then I went to the tennis courts, which was like by the beach or whatever. And I realized, holy shit, not one person here has any clue what happened in the markets.
Absolutely.
They came to the tennis court, service, who's playing. So the silver lining is that how early we are too. Like the past couple of weeks for all of us in the community here and has been so crazy. Yet when you go into the Gen Pop, they have no clue what's going on. And that's
not
bullish.
At all. Not at all. And the Japanese yen carry trade situation, I'm glad you brought it up because that's actually something I was going to address today. There's a lot of macroeconomic people that are great at what they do, certified financial advisor people out there that call out the potential for another hike in Japanese interest rates causing another cataclysm. But the fact is that Japan is essentially a colony of the United States. They're one of the most intrinsically important trade partners on the planet to the United States at this point. They're not going to be blowing up anything, really. What we're going to see, push come to shove for Japanese fiat currency, is that it's going to sacrifice itself into the US dollar. And I know that that's kind of an insane thing to say, but that is the way that I feel this is going to unwind. Yes, there's macroeconomic pressures there. Yes, their fiat currency is dying. But essentially, is dollar strength waning? Or can we actually... Is there any of that reality happening? No, it's hitting all-time highs in usage across the world. And even Putin himself is like, listen, we can't completely take ourselves off the dollar. It's the king of all fiat currencies. It's the king settlement layer of all fiat currency. We can't just pull off the dollar. Not to mention the assets within the oligarchs of Russia and China are wrapped up in US dollar assets, right? So when we think about this and we think about, the dollar's value, it's a sure downhill ride. It's about how slow they can make that death trickle to, 0.0001 of its value 100 years ago. So I really feel like the Bitcoin explosion up is in tandem with the devaluation going down. And yes, Trump is probably being handed a ticking time bomb on the U.S. economy, but he's building a plan to let it be transitioned into a dollar backed by Bitcoin. And this is the massive golden signal that we have, that we've all been waiting for. We've all been seeing this hope that Bitcoin gave us in 2008, 2009, when it was incepted during the housing crisis. Fast forward 12 years later, we're there, baby. You're watching the system crumble into what has been known as Bitcoin and decentralized peer-to-peer payments. It's an
Now
incredible time to be alive.
I noticed a change in wording. So from the Bitcoin convention, whatever, what's it called? Convention. Is it called the Bitcoin convention? The Nashville?
Bitcoin Nashville
Conference.
Bitcoin conference. Yeah.
Anyway, he referred to it as a stockpile. And I see now people are now referring to it as a strategic reserve. That's a huge change in wording. So where do you think, let's just call it today at around 1 o'clock, Trump says, or someone talking for Trump says, we're about to implement this as a strategic reserve, etc. Where does price go at that point?
Yeah, I mean, without BlackRock, without Microsoft, without MicroStrategy, without any of these other
Without retail?
Bitcoin, without retail, without any of that involved, if the bill S4912 that's proposed by Cynthia Lummis is enacted and they start purchasing on the plan within that bill as it's laid out, that brings Bitcoin's price to $250,000 within 2025 without anything else happening. Okay, so that's why I'm talking about this with such gusto right now, is because what's about to hit the table is nation state FOMO. When Russia and China see a hard-sided United States bill to build a strategic reserve of Bitcoin to back the world reserve, it's over. That's it. That's it. Like the time frame we're in right now, we have a very, very short window until this thing starts going absolutely parabolic. And me and you have been discussing, and I think a very conventional and conservative way, these nations are playing the decades, the centuries game. We're not going to see this massive flush out, I feel like. I will be absolutely thrilled if we do see $70,000 Bitcoin in 2027 again. I doubt I'm going to be able to get that. At best, I'm kind of feeling like $150,000 is the floor that's going to be built upon this, if even that, because retail isn't really playing the game. I mean, retail is playing the altcoins game, and there is actually some conversation on an institutional level about even altcoins at this point. So it's just it's such a fun time to be alive, man. And like, even XRP people are having their day today. They hit like 80, 90 cents. Wow. You know what I mean? This means the dinosaur coins are waking up. The bones in the ground of HBAR and Algorand and all of these other holders are starting to see that money, and it, as Bitcoins flow, will flow downhill. Stupid gains are going to be made in the altcoin sector, and excellent gains are going to be made in Bitcoin. So I'm just feeling damn good, man. We're coming up on the time frame. I was warning about this all year. I was like, when November comes, you're going to see the run actually begin. Everyone's sitting here falling off the boat over the last 9 months as we were ranging in that channel from basically $74,000 down to $49,000, which is that August 5th moment that you mentioned. That was a painful channel, and you saw a lot of really intelligent people lose their gusto, lose their cool, because they saw how violent of an upswing. Just wait until we have daily price swings of $50,000 on Bitcoin. Then you can take your temperature and feel your emotion and how much is going to be going on inside your brain once that time frame comes, you guys. We're right on the door of it, and I'm just glad to be part of. I feel like 100 years from now, this is going to be looked at as the trade of the century. What we're doing right now. Absolutely.
For sure. There's a bullish storm on the horizon that's so crazy. Like when you factor in the strategic reserve, so that's just at the federal government level, let alone each state. So we're not really factoring in what happens to each state. So are you gonna tell me that half the states won't? You know, as soon as states start having their own strategic reserve, it's not like, well, you know, maybe California might not, maybe Washington might not, but like majority of them are going to go, oh shit, we got to get this too. That's just the states.
I think Democrat states are going to roll into it as well. You know, we saw it start like Pennsylvania announced, just as you said, they're wording it a strategic reserve. And that came out yesterday. Not to mention the pension funds. I mean, we're talking strategic reserves. we're talking pension funds, we're talking multinational conglomerate organizations that market caps are, 500 billion to $1 trillion each company, rolling in and backing their company with it. And now as people see what MicroStrategy is accomplishing on the Wall Street side, you're also going to see corporations get pushed and pressured to buy Bitcoin to have on their balance sheets as well. By their investors. They see the upside, they see where things are going, and people are going. This is the compounding snowball down a hill money effect that we see happen every time in the Bitcoin bull market. But now we basically just have this giant tube of nitrous oxide connected to our engine, and when that button is pressed, and that button is the strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's going to be backbreaking for the people that are already inside that vehicle ready to experience the upside. It's going to be fun.
Even outside of the strategic reserve talk, let's just go into this subset that no one's really talking about or caring, even though it's so massive. It's Google is voting. Or is it Microsoft? Microsoft
is
voting in a couple weeks. Do you think their shareholders are going to be like, "Oh, you're not going to get Bitcoin? That's fine." So let's go down that lane where Microsoft votes to make a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Then we got Apple. Like imagine like Apple sitting on something like 200 billion of melting ice cubes. 200 billion melting ice cubes. Same with Microsoft. Okay, so my next question is, where the F are they going to get the Bitcoin? Where?
That's where there's always a seller depending on how much you're willing to pay. And that's where the price increase comes from, on that supply squeezes. There's always a seller for a certain price. And they're going to run into a situation where I don't even want to think that bullish. That's what pushes us past and up into the 500s. I don't even want to think about that happening. It could be happening this cycle. These organizations, they're slower moving vehicles, but at the rate that they're going to try to catch up to Bitcoin's price action, this might get jettisoned into the forefront. And that kind of situation, if you do run into a supply shock while you have nation state FOMO, while you have corporate FOMO, that is where you get into the Cathie Wood type target of $1 million Bitcoin.
The Omega candle, 100K a day.
Yeah, that's where you get into that kind of FOMO. But, we do have some things that are going for us, like to keep it at least at bay. We have miners. They do sell. They keep their lights on by selling the Bitcoin. They don't sit there holding it all of it as an asset. They do hold chunks of it as assets. But I did see a good amount of Bitcoin make it onto exchanges this morning. And really, I don't think that they're going to be able to keep up with the demand. The miner selling is not going to be able to keep up and pad down the demand. And that is where you get into just the hyper Bitcoinization God candle that we can't even imagine. I don't want to think that bullish. I try to just keep everything within, fib extensions and volume profiles and try to keep it based that way. But that is a situation that is why I stack Bitcoin for my kids, is to get ready for that time frame, because that time frame will come. And I want to make sure that is part of my legacy and holding an asset that's got that coming down the road for it.
Well, I'm trying to figure this one out too. With the MicroStrategy's infinite money glitch, some of the miners are picking up on that. Well, why are we going to sell our Bitcoin when we can offer collateralized debt into the market and just keep our borrow against? So when we have all these massive mining companies not selling, buying and borrowing against, and then retail gets a little more sophisticated, and instead of selling at the top, people are just borrowing against somehow, whether it's staking. But Howard Lutnick, Secretary Treasurer, that is like the craziest appointment that could ever happen to Bitcoin. One of the biggest Bitcoin bill. Like, he's already at Cantor Fitzgerald, he's doing his whoa. Duke just blew into it. We're good today, Duke. Thanks, though. Well, you can come say hi for a second.
That was so cute. It's like Kramer and Seinfeld. What's up,
That's
brother?
right. Hey. So like Cantor Fitzgerald's going to offer to borrow against. They're going to be the first company to really blow that out, and then he becomes the Secretary of Treasury. That's insanity.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, though, because if you think about a Bitcoin strategic reserve and money creation through borrowing, it's about having a more tangible and finite resource that is in your reserve to collateralize against new debt, right? So, I mean, I don't think the system at large is going to necessarily give up its own mechanisms or its old mechanisms of creating wealth out of new debt. It's about having a more sound backing asset to justify that new debt. Because as it sits right now, I mean, the idea of short oil or, war machines backing the debt, not really the big preference for nation states. It's not very sustainable over decades time frame. But if you have Bitcoin that's going to run out by 2120 and they hold, 5-10% of the overall ever existing supply of it, that becomes a conversation that makes a lot more sense for humanity, for financial systems at large. But, we also have, I don't want to get too bullish about it, but Ron Paul does have an ear with the Trump administration now and does have the game plan on how congressionally the Federal Reserve in and of itself is unconstitutional. So we will see that conversation pop out about this Fugazi Federal Reserve and its unconstitutional standing. And with that, I mean, potentially, if we get a based enough Congress that is willing to take a stand against one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful entity on the planet, which is the Federal Reserve, then we could see things basically turn into hyper Bitcoinization at that point. That's where things can get real stupid.
Yeah, you can see the power that those the Federal Reserve and even the SEC has when you see them grilling Jerry Pow Pow and Dirty Gary Gensler, and they're just kind of smirking, and they don't really care about the questions because they don't work for the government.
They don't work for the government. They don't work for the people. They don't work for the government. They don't work for anyone but themselves. And that is something that constitutionally and freedom based and American zest based, I am not letting the gas up on that conversation by any means. I'm going to make it known to every single living person possible that the Federal Reserve in and of itself is unconstitutional by design and implementation. It was not approved in the traditional way that it should have been under the guise and the build of law in the United States. And there are things that we can do about this. So, just take that, put that in their pipe and smoke it, because you know what? The next step is taking a close look at how this thing was designed. It was designed and put in place at like 3:00 in the morning on Christmas Eve between 3 congressional members, not the entire Congress. It was not done in the way that things should have been done. And now it basically has more power than the government, and that needs to be reined in.
Yeah, The Creature from Jekyll Island is one of the scariest books I ever read because it's a true story. It's a horror story, but it's completely true. And if anyone hasn't read that, man, pick that one up as soon as you can, because I feel like it's one of those books, like you can get the audiobook. I bought the actual book because part of my legacy I want to give Duke is actual books, because I think, had things not changed with this election and we went down the other way, I could see certain books just being illegal to buy, illegal to possess, and one of them will be The Creature from Jekyll Island.
I completely agree with that. Because it gives a higher level of thought to the average person if they can understand how and why and where the Federal Reserve was implemented. And, really, we face a situation where, we are taxed 6 to 10-fold more than we were when the American Revolution kicked off. And people literally bled and died over stopping that. We have now morphed into this congealed, disgusting monster of taxation and control that absolutely needs to be dismantled and redesigned in a way that means well for the average person, that gives privacy and freedom to the average person. It used to be that we knew everything about our elected leaders and they knew nothing about us. They flipped the script on us through the use of data. Now we know nothing about them and they know everything about us. And that is not how things are meant to be. And I will fight against that narrative and the idea of that being okay until the literal day that I die.
Let's do some blind spots, because as critical thinkers here, sometimes we get so bullish on one side that we get blinded to some things that we may not see. So when it comes to the Trump coalition, and when it comes to strategic reserve, when it comes to Bobby Kennedy as the health czar, what are some potential blind spots that we're not seeing?
Well, I mean, there are some ways that they could create a crisis between now and Inauguration Day, which, if they were to justify and be able to label it as a constitutional crisis, then they could block the appointment of Trump.
Can they, though?
And then they could, if they labeled a constitutional crisis in play, they could put Kamala Harris as the acting president. They could get Joe Biden to resign and let Kamala have the reins and then control that constitutional crisis environment. And then,
because they are pretty quiet,
they are awfully
for a
quiet,
massive
right?
loss. It's like,
Right.
it's deafening how quiet that side is.
Yes, it is absolutely quiet. And in that situation, that is something that is in the back of my mind, but I'm just trying to focus on the positive that we were able to win the election. But that is something that I keep in mind. And then also, 10, 20 years down the road, if they sell this chip in your brain as some huge positive that everyone just absolutely must have, then we end up in a scenario where we have quickened the data aggregation out of our soul and given it to corporate America on a mass scale. And then we wake up in the matrix. So, from a religious standpoint, I have basically a hard no on ever chipping myself. Everyone's like, "Oh, if you become a paraplegic, you'll do it, Drew. I guarantee you." Hard no. You don't know me, and that is where kind of the religious steadfastness of my persona comes into play, because that is something I'm never going to give up. And I will die organic as a human the way I am right now, and I'm fine with that. But I think that some of the blind spots may be AI seeing humans as locusts in 10 years from now, after it has complete control. AI is going to be used to kind of automate and better our lives over the next 5 to 10 years. And we're going to see how much control this system gives those mechanisms, and if AI actually means well for humans 10 or 20 years down the road, when it sees how many resources humans and organic organism pull from the existing earth. And then the decision point comes from there. So it's going to get weird.
Bobby Kennedy, blind spots and the law of unintended consequences.
Bobby Kennedy?
Yeah.
So
like it's one of my dreams health wise that someone with a brain is actually potentially in charge. But as a critical thinker, what are some blind spots in the law of unintended consequences with someone like Bobby in charge of that mechanism, coming from 4 years of complete and utter destruction and corruption?
Less widespread autism, less sudden infant death syndrome, less heavy highways of autoimmune disease, which have now plagued the nation at levels we couldn't even imagine 10 years ago. Less baseline degradation of the human body through the medical industrial complex, which has built these internal heavy highways of pain and destruction for the average person. I think that what Bobby Kennedy has been looking at has been spot on. I feel that me personally, I don't vaccinate. I don't. And I accept flu season when it comes. I let my immune system build itself stronger when it comes. And I have an extremely healthy family from doing so. So the blind spots, man, he's a doctor and a lawyer, and I think that he's been spot on for the last 15 years, and that's exactly why the medical industrial complex wanted to bury him under the ground for the last decade and a half. It didn't work. They didn't stop him. He looks healthier than ever at 70 years old or something like that he is. He could probably bench press 225 pounds. He is the example of health that I want for this country, rather than this constant suckling of a medical industrial complex that wants to keep you sick and keep you as a customer and keep you in debt by going and getting your help.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the concept of Bobby Kennedy and Ron Paul, like I never thought that Ron Paul would even get a foot in the door, let alone being celebrated for what he should be celebrated, because he's been villainized for so long, and he's just kept on fighting. It's good to see that, you know, he's not getting that younger. So for him to make a lasting change in the political arena before, you know, he goes somewhere else, that's like it makes my heart flutter a bit.
Dude, I mean, this is something I never imagined we're seeing the death of wokeism. We're seeing the death of a medical industrial complex. These pharmaceutical executives had emergency meetings this week. Some of them are already resigning. We see their stocks plummeting. We see the system that we have been fighting against for so very long crumbling before our eyes. And I'm tired of not having hope. What I saw just happen on a macroeconomic and political scale is an upheaval that honestly was something I was aiming for, but it was unimaginable us actually getting it. We got it. Celebrate it, lean into it, support it, and fight against these systems at large. It doesn't have to be just the status quo. You don't have to just accept how things have been. We can make a change and overhaul this system and make this world better right now. Be loud.
Yeah, it's like the orange pill is like this mist that I can see floating into government, and it's slowly affecting people. Like some of the concepts, even the Department of, what do they call government? What does the E stand for? Department of Government
Efficiency. Yeah,
Efficiency.
Department of Government Efficiency.
That is part of the orange pill mist. I mean, the great thing about Bitcoin is that it kills corruption, and you may not even know that you're changing. But just like with Elon's a Bitcoiner. You know, he's a smart guy, and it's slowly creeping into government, and that's what I like to see, because with the fiat regime, they can just print money into oblivion and do whatever they want, and it's just so corrupt. We're going to see an end to that, and then we get back into logic and critical thought. It's going to be exciting, you know, next generation.
This is what we needed, man. This is what we needed. And the slow design of Bitcoin and the intrinsic difficulty of breaking this as a system, it's not a bug, it's a feature. And regular human existence and being fallible to, viruses and biological ailments, they are something that humans have developed over the past millennia of being here on Earth. These are not a bug. These are a feature that God gave us. We have the ability within ourselves to adapt and overcome to new things that are introduced into the human race. And for God's sake, stop relying on the medical industrial complex to keep you alive. Stop paying these exorbitant taxes that make no sense. Stop supporting governments that mean nothing for you but death and slow destruction.
Make sure you like and subscribe and share this video.